Have you noticed that as you start to feel more radiant and more aligned, people who used to get you suddenly don't? There's something that we don't say out loud very often or enough. Spiritual growth can feel really lonely, not dramatically lonely, just quietly disorientating. I often talk about Fred feeling radiant every day. And one of the simplest tools I use is the Fred scale. I rate my radiance in any moment, not to criticize myself, just to notice. Am I at an 8, a 6, a 4? I had coffee with an old work colleague recently. If you'd asked me during the conversation, I would have probably said I was at a 7. I was present, I was listening, I was kind. It felt like I was enjoying myself. But when I walked away and checked in properly, I realised I wasn't at a 7 at all. I really was at about a 2, maybe 3 at best. That surprised me. There hadn't been any conflict, there was no tension, nothing was obviously wrong. He talked, I listened, I held space. I was the steady one, the container, the capable friend. And somewhere in that dynamic, I had dialed myself down. It was like I'd stopped broadcasting, or at least I'd lowered the signal. I use a radio analogy because it makes sense to me. If you've been doing the inner work, questioning your rules and your beliefs, aligning with your divine soul blueprint, your frequency changes. You move from 95.5 FM to 102 FM. You're not better than anyone. You're just tuned differently. And if someone is still on 95.5 while you're on 102, they're static. You can keep broadcasting clearly and accept that they may not be able to hear you, or you can turn your dial down so the static disappears. In that conversation, I had turned my dial down, not because he asked me to, not even consciously, but because somewhere it just felt like there was no point in broadcasting fully. There was no shared signal. When I was driving home, I realised my Fred number was sitting at a 2 or 3, and that told me something important. I got home, went for a walk, which helped to raise my vibration, and by the time I reached my front door again, I had shifted up, maybe back to a 6. My body moved, my breath had settled, but my mind was still whirring, trying to connect the dots. What was happening? Why do I feel so flat? Where did I leave myself? And the clarity that came was this. I had stepped back into an old role, the role I had when we worked together, the container without the spark, the listener without expression, the steady presence, but not fully me. Feeling radiant every day sometimes means noticing when you're dimming yourself to maintain a dynamic. It means being honest about the cost of that to you. And it means choosing next time to stay on your frequency, even if it creates just a little static. And that can feel lonely, but it also feels true. If you've been walking away from certain conversations feeling slightly invisible or oddly drained, it may not mean you're too sensitive. It may mean your dial has shifted, and your Fred number will give you honest feedback. If you're curious about this idea, you can download the Fred scale from my website. I'll put the link in the description. It's a simple tool, but it changes everything when you start noticing your radiance number in real time, because awareness is where wisdom begins. And choosing not to turn yourself down, that's where radiance lives. And when you're doing that, always remember to live life lightly.